just want to get right into it. Now that you have a seat secured on the council, you just told me you take office on Monday. How do you plan to help revitalize the city, particularly when it comes to bringing businesses and employers to the area?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me back, Eli. I appreciate it. Nice to be back on Salisbury's campus, and it's very nice and refreshing to be here as a soon-to-be city councilman, not just as a candidate, but I look forward to serving the city. And that's a particular area of interest for me. Without a doubt, the city has been perceived to be an unsafe place to make investments for businesses. If you've watched growth over Salisbury for the last couple of decades, you'd know that most of the economic activity in the last 2 to 3 years has been happening around campus. It's been happening on Route 13, in the Salisbury University, let's call it a district almost. So that's been the driver of economic activity. And that's because there's a context of certainty. You know that the university is going to be there. You know that the university is going to continue to grow. You know that students are going to continue to be here. And you know that there are dollars to be spent. And I don't mean to talk about it in crass terms, but it means that a business, whether it's a national chain like Five Guys or a local business, like Cheers even, is going to succeed if in close proximity to Salisbury University, especially if it's in walking distance. So what are we going to do to make sure that that exists everywhere in Salisbury? Well, we're going to have to create a context of certainty everywhere in Salisbury. And certainty doesn't mean you approve everything every time and you just guarantee that if you come to Salisbury with an idea, we'll just say okay. We have to do these things watching the city's dollars, which are your and my tax dollars, watching the bottom line of the city. So we can't give the store away, so to speak. But we just have to be more certain. We have to create that context of certainty. And the way that we're going to do that is two things. One, a change in culture and attitude. And I think we did that through the election. We built up a lot of enthusiasm and excitement about this city being ready to take the next step and experience a resurgence and experience a revitalization and be a good place for people to live, work, and play and invest. And the second way we're going to do that is by making city government a proactive partner in economic development. And that's going to mean having the right people in place and ensuring that those people are there to shepherd business owners, people with a business idea, and investors through the planning, permitting, development process, and ultimately to a place where they can then operate their business and do the things that they're good at and succeed.
Talk about being more business friendly, and something along those lines that also affects residents is the lockout law, the lockout ordinance.
Yes.
Talk to us a little bit about that. The mayor has said it's going to go back to council. What do you see happening with it when it goes there?
I don't think that in the lockout ordinance as proposed, which is the ordinance that said essentially it was like a 2 strikes and you're out law, providing the city the authority, and in fact the chief of police the authority to shut down a business that had 2 or more violations within a 2-year span. So that would be serving alcohol to a minor. That would be calls for service for a fight or something like that, and any other variety of more serious offenses. Obviously, we have bad actors. In every industry, in every part of the world, there are bad actors in any group. So we have businesses in our community that are sources of calls for service, for fights, for serving minors, for various other things, noise violations. These are things that we have to deal with. And you have to deal with them in a structural way by creating a legislative or creating a legal framework to deal with them. And you have to deal with them in an enforcement manner. You have to pursue them, and you have to ensure that people are either responsible or not allowed to operate their business. So we need to deal with that in some way. The proposed lockout ordinance, however, it created too low a threshold, I think, for dealing with those issues. It basically said to a business owner, if you make 2 mistakes, serving a minor who has a fake ID, something like that, or have 2 fights on your property within 2 years, we have the right to shutter your business. Now, there are people who will say that, well, the the liquor board can pull a liquor license. Well, we're not just talking about stores that sell alcohol, whether a bar or a liquor store. But if that's what we're talking about, the liquor board has the right to pull the liquor license, but that doesn't deal with the root of the problem. And although alcohol may be a big part of the problem, the root of the problem is that business owner is not being responsible. So what I'd like to see is either not pursuing this course of action at all, or pursuing a different course of action, which would be some higher threshold. So meaning a business be given the opportunity to try to correct the problem first, and maybe given a second opportunity to correct the problem themselves, and then to say, okay, we're going to pursue a new course of action, which at the end of a long series of attempts to find resolution, perhaps shuttering a business is the way to go. But I don't think it should be the first step, and I don't think it should be the result of two mistakes without really providing an opportunity to correct. For example, and I don't mean to go on and on, but for example, the issue of serving a minor. There are ways that a bar can deal with that. The person who served can be fired. Maybe the person who took the ID at the door, if you have a doorman, could be fired, or simply there could be some sort of punishment or retraining. These are things, and I don't think people should lose their job, right off the bat. I really don't for things like that. I think there should be retraining. I think there should be remedial action, and then ultimately stricter punishment. But you got to take the first steps to get there. You can't immediately say we're going to come in at a 10. We need to say, well, we're going to come in at a 1. We're going to retrain you so that you are more equipped to handle these situations. And then we're going to come in at a 5. And if after that, once again, you don't take the opportunity to retrain and course correct, then we're going to come in at a 10.
Tell me about bringing an economic developer to the city. It's something that you've said you think is important to help bring businesses in and employers in. Tell me about your thoughts on that, and how would you pay for such a position?
Well, I mean, first of all, we have one of the most talented economic development professionals in the region, if not the country, who's been here a long time and done amazing things, Mr. Dave Ryan, who's the director of Salisbury-Wicomico Economic Development Incorporated, which is an independent organization funded by the county and the city. And SWED and Mr. Ryan are incredibly effective at recruiting, at helping a business navigate the waters and figure out how to make an investment in Salisbury. They've brought huge employers to Salisbury. They've built us up as a cluster or a market for the cluster of microwave and high tech. There's also pharmaceutical jobs that have come to this community as a result of their hard work. Aerospace, I mean, it's really incredible what they've been able to accomplish. So what I would add to that is a new focus on place-based economic development. What we found in the last 15, 20 years is that placemaking, which is a concept of basically creating mixed-use, vibrant neighborhoods where people want to be, whatever their job is, even if it's in one of those large employers on the periphery or somewhere else in an industrial park or elsewhere in the city, a place where they want to be, to shop, to live, to eat, to spend time, to see other people. People attract people. And when you create a place that's livable and walkable and exciting and vibrant and has this mix of residential and retail and some office as well, that's when you create the sort of core and heart and soul that both businesses and because their employees want to be. So Salisbury hasn't done that, and many communities have, and those who have reaped significant rewards. Places that I've talked about throughout this campaign, like Asheville, or throughout my campaign, like Asheville, North Carolina, and Greenville, South Carolina. They said, if we don't have a beautiful downtown, it doesn't matter that we've got the right tax policy. It doesn't matter that we've got the right corporate structure. It doesn't matter that we're able to attract, that we've got low labor costs. Those things matter less than when the executives or even the families fly in and say, where are we going to locate? And we're considering your community. If they fly in and you take them on a tour and you avoid downtown, that speaks volumes. Or if you take them on a tour of the community and you take them to downtown and there's no there, As Ed McMahon of the Urban Land Institute likes to say, if there's no there, then people aren't going to want to make an investment. No one wants to make an investment in a community that won't invest in itself. So once we've recognized that our industrial recruitment strategy and our macroeconomic development strategies are working at the highest function that they can, they're incredibly effective, then we need to supplement those and complement those with a place-based economic development strategy. And the second part of your question, an individual and how do we pay for that? I'm not sure if we take steps, I'm not sure the first step needs to be immediately hiring someone in that position. So, and in fact, what the mayor did recently, just last week, or earlier this week, forgive me, was he announced the Let's Do Business Salisbury initiative. And part of that was having the Assistant City Administrator, Dr. Lorraine Chambers, step into a new role, and a new sort of job description as the person who is responsible for being our chief sort of economic development officer within the city government. So by redefining her role, and I think by supplementing her position by giving her some help and people that do the things that she used to do, but her plate is going to, her plate has grown, but her time is limited. But giving her some support for the people to do the tasks that she used to do, and otherwise would have to continue doing in addition to her new duties, I think we'll have at least a first step. I also want to know and meet with SWED and meet with Mr. Ryan, what can we do to supplement the good work that you've been doing, and how can we equip you to continue to grow that effort? So simultaneously, we're kind of pushing and pulling on all levers. And then I think the Chamber of Commerce is the last part of it. So it's not all about how do we pay for things that the city government wants to do. It's how do we mobilize and energize other partners in the community to start getting some things done. And I think the Chamber of Commerce, the Salisbury Area Chamber of Commerce, needs to be a player in that effort.
I want to stay in that general area. Over the campaign, during the campaign, we heard Ms. Campbell or saw Ms. Campbell often bring out a list of some of your goals and initiatives and highlight some things that she asked how you would pay for. And you do have some plans that don't cost and some that would cost money. How do you plan to fund some of these plans, such as hiring more police officers, building on the waterfront? A lot of your supporters agree with these things, but how do you plan to pay for them?
Great question. Well, I'll start off by saying that plan, that's not something that Ms. Campbell brought to the table. She did several times, but something I brought to the table and was proud of and remain proud of. I mean, that plan was the first and only real document. Although Mr. Albero came out with an economic development strategy at the end of his campaign. But that was the first and really only comprehensive putting pen to paper of what will I do if you elect me. And that happens in some campaigns and it doesn't in others. And to me, it was important that I communicate to the voters that I say, here's what I would do if you voted for me. And there were lots of people who told me, don't do that. Don't get into specifics. Just talk in generalities. But that's not why I ran. I ran to get some things done. So I needed to tell people, this is what I would do if you voted for me. And it clearly resonated. I don't know that was the reason anyone voted for me, but it didn't hurt, I don't think. So that document, you're right. There are some things in there that won't cost the city a penny and have nothing to do with city government. They have to do with leadership, and they have to do with governance, and they have to do with community. They have to do with the things that are important to this community and have to do with partners like Salisbury University, and have to do with me as an individual. What am I going to give, not as a member of the city council, but as a representative? What am I going to do when I'm not behind that table? How am I going to continue to help? And then some things are about what city government is going to do. And you're right, there is a cost to some of those things. There can be costs to what you just said, development on the waterfront. There can be direct costs to the city for those things. Now, there doesn't have to be. If we can incentivize development by reducing barriers to investment, by reducing red tape, by making the process easier, by being more friendly to developers, by giving them a context of certainty, those things don't cost us any money. There are also things that we can do that we've always done, requiring or potentially waiving a payment in lieu of taxes, a pilot, by reducing the cost of impact fees reducing the cost of water and sewer connection fees specifically. We can do those things immediately, and there is a cost in that we collect less, but not a direct expenditure to the city. So our revenue might decrease a little bit, but what happens is the tax base increases, and our long-term revenue increases when we do that. And when that long-term revenue, I'm going to stop for 1 second because I'm starting to talk in terms of the revenue and expenditure of city government. And one of the things I always recognized as a citizen, not as a candidate for anything, but as a citizen, is that when I hear government officials talk about the checks and balances of budgeting and how the city's going to pay for this, and when we think about the budget of a city, and in fact city government is, or any government, is just one small piece of how we can influence and how we as a community should be proactive. So it's just one piece. So I just want to keep that in mind and remind the students and faculty and administrators who may be watching that I recognize that as a citizen, I expect more from my government. I expect more from my government because my government is me, and not me, city council member, but my government is truly of the people, for the people, by the people. They should be doing all sorts of things to create an environment for economic success, for life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, for all of these things, and should not be limiting those things without just thinking in terms of what can the city do with the dollars that we collect through taxes. And I think when you think like that, you think about a very narrow set of city services. And you think about legislation that is at once not limiting to activity, but just protective of the rights and needs and public health, safety, and welfare, really. Those are the things that we want to do. So what can city government do, and how can city government pay for these things that I've talked about? That's a small slice of the pie in my mind. There's so much more that we can and should be doing. So we're going to change culture. We're going to change the way we do business. We're going to be proactive. We're going to be friendly to investors and businesses. We're going to not give away the store. We're going to ensure that those who come to this community with an idea, willing to make an investment, have a fair hearing, and that the people who are deciding what to do and what to invest and what to place are the citizens of Salisbury and those willing to make an investment. That it's not the 5 people that sit behind that table and the mayor. Ultimately, it'll be our job to just ensure that the well-oiled machine is continuing to function.
Now, you mentioned the council and the mayor. I want to talk about that. Mm-hmm. We often see, especially during council meetings, the dividing line when it comes to particular votes. We saw during the election night speech given by the mayor that he told Laura Mitchell that help was on the way. How is that going to play out in the council? Is this going to tip the scales in the mayor's court? Should we expect to see votes going in a different way now that it seems like a different set of lines have been drawn?
I still see myself as kind of an outsider to all of this, and perhaps that'll change a bit on Monday. But but maybe that's a perspective that I'll bring and keep on the council, because we've had a condition where there have been sides for many years in Salisbury politics, and there have been almost universally good people and capable people who care about Salisbury, but there is a series of divisions that have been created and shifted over time. And so I don't see myself, and this is not your term, this is something I'm saying, but I don't see myself as a member of a new majority. I look forward to working with Ms. Mitchell and Ms. Shields and Ms. Cohen and Mr. Spies and Mayor Ireton. I look forward to working with all of them. And I consider them my new colleagues, my partners in serving this city. The presumption is, of course, that well, now it's 3-2 the other way, or now it's a group of new people in leadership, and the old group is out. It's not like that. It really isn't, and it can't be, because, like I said, Mr. Spies, Councilman Spies, and Ms. Cohen, Councilwoman Cohen, they care about the city. They're smart, capable people, and I want to work with them. And I hope that that bears out not only in my actions, but also in their perception of me. And I hope Ms. Shields and Ms. Mitchell see the same of me. And I don't see myself as a servant to the mayor's agenda or any other council member's agenda, or even purely to my plan that I printed, our vision for Salisbury. I don't see myself as a servant or slave to those things, but as a servant to the citizens of Salisbury. These things are going to change, and your priorities, our priorities, might be different from what Jake Day put on a piece of paper, and I'm just going to have to deal with that, and I'm going to have to serve the things that you identify, that we identify as a community, even if they change a bit in the next couple of years. I think that was a broad enough document and a thick enough document that we're going to have enough time dealing with the things that I identified, and dealing with the things that are already on our plate, and dealing with the things that the mayor is going to bring to the council and the 4 other members of the council are going to bring. So we're going to have a full agenda, I'm sure. But at the end of the day, I don't see myself as a part of a political group. And I hope, more than anything else, you can walk into a city council meeting, know that it's going to be concise, know that it's going to be deliberate, know that it's going to be well run, and know that you can't predict what the votes are going to be. I'd really love for citizens to be able to watch on PAC 14 or sit in the audience and say, I have no idea how these people are going to vote today, other than knowing that they're going to give a fair hearing to whatever the issue is, they're going to act on their conscience, and they're going to act deliberately and quickly. And maybe it's 4-1, maybe it's 3-2, maybe it's 5-0, who knows? But that's what I'd like to see.
I want to ask if you've had the opportunity to speak to Ms. Campbell since the election.
I have.
And how did that conversation go? Do you plan on working with her on issues that face the city as she served on the council for multiple terms?
We didn't get into that, but she was nothing but professional and cordial, and in fact, I thought just very nice, and dealt with the results of the election as any professional should. And I was very, very impressed with that, and I look forward to, if she is interested in continuing to work on the things that she cares about in the city, I look forward to the opportunity to work with her. I really hope that that's a possibility. I've also had the opportunity to work with and talk with, over the last few weeks, some of the people who have worked on her campaign and on Mr. Albero's campaign. They've got good ideas for the city, and I look forward to incorporating those, and more than anything else, and this goes back to my perspective on what city government can and can't do, or can do and should do, empowering those individuals to take a leadership role in getting some things done, whether it's formal or informal, take a leadership role and get some of those things done. Because again, city government can enable a lot of things, but doesn't have to be the end-all and be-all for everything.
Lastly, I want to ask you, what was your first reaction? What's the first thing that you did when you learned the results and learned that you'd have a seat on the council? I
think the first thing I did was got a big hug from my fiance, and then followed by my mom, my sister, and my grandmother. So I think that's the first thing I did. It's surreal. I mean, how do you react? I mean, it wasn't an immediate sort of, fist pumping and cheering, just because it's surreal. And you've worked very, very hard. I worked hard every day for this election. I will work hard every day for this city, and it's going to be different now. The enthusiasm is there, but the momentum shifts. The momentum will decrease, just because the interest in other things will increase, and that's fine. That's natural. That's acceptable. What is unacceptable is losing the initiative that we have right now. So I want to keep the enthusiasm high. I will continue to work every day, and now that I've had a little time to digest it, I've got the fist pump going. I'm happy now. I'm excited. I'm eager. I'm ready for Monday night. I'm ready to get on the council and to do the good things that we've talked about doing.
All right, well, thank you so much for joining us again. I'm sure
Eli,
this won't be the last time we see you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you having me here.
Thank you.